Tonight, the really big winner in the Wisconsin recall election is President Obama.
With every incentive in the world for him to continue being as radical as he's been and more.
John Heilemann, I said at the top of the show that President Obama was the big winner tonight because in the exit polls, we saw today that they were asked who would you vote for president today. 53% in Wisconsin. 53% say President Obama. Only 42% say Mitt Romney. That is, if not the recall outcome, that outcome for President Obama has to be very encouraging.
Very encouraging, Lawrence, and something that the campaign in Chicago sent out as a news release as soon as the earliest exit poll showing the president with the lead came through. They think that Wisconsin is a state that's pretty solid for them. It's been blue for a long time. It's a state that not only Barack Obama won by 13 or 14 points last time around, but also was won narrowly by John Kerry, was won by Al Gore in 2000, of course, won by Bill Clinton in 1996 and 1992. So it's been a long time since that state's been Republican. I think the Obama people are pretty confident. The Romney people are not spending money there. But there is one electoral effect here that is not good for the president, which is that in a hotly contested state election where to some extent it was about a contest between outside money and on the ground, boots on the ground, grassroots organizing on the other side, money won. And if you think about the army of Republican multimillionaires and billionaires who are thinking about writing big checks to super PACs, they look at Wisconsin and say, our dollars helped keep Scott Walker in his job. Our dollars can beat the Democratic ground game in a lot of states where it is really close, unlike Wisconsin, and they're going to be all the more likely to write those big checks, and that is bad news for President Obama.
Dorian Warren, John's right, money won. But money won at a 7-to-1 spending ratio. They had to spend 7 times more than the Democrats to win this thing, and Citizens United allowed them to do it.
That's right. And remember, President Obama, Vice President Biden spent no time in the state campaigning for Barrett, the mayor of Milwaukee, in this race. So remember, we're going to see a lot more action from them closer to the election cycle in November to try to win the state. But Barrett presumably lost without their support, being outspent, 7-to-1, as you pointed out. And I do think this will, I think Rachel's right, I do think this will embolden Republican governors across the country to keep going after especially public sector unions, because that is the last remaining source of money and ground troops for the Democratic Party.
I don't know. I got to tell you, if I was a Republican governor and I saw what happened to Walker, I'd say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I just assume not have a recall campaign where I just barely survive and I have to raise all that money. Rachel, I want to go to another exit poll indicating good news for President Obama and a complete failure of the Romney message in Wisconsin. Exit poll, who would do a better job improving the economy? 44% say President Obama, 36% say Mitt Romney.
It is amazing to see that 8-point spread on that critical economy question, and as you point out, an 11-point margin of theoretical victory for President Obama over Mitt Romney among the electorate that just decided to keep Scott Walker. I mean, we think about I think partisanship being much more, I guess, much more homogenous than it is, and people do differentiate between different politicians and between different levels of government when they make their decisions on these things. So to have an electorate return Scott Walker in Wisconsin and be so pro-Obama, I think John Heilemann is right to talk about the fact that overall in Wisconsin it is not likely that Wisconsin is going to be an uphill battle for Obama-Biden in the fall. And if Republicans want to try to fight for it there, I'm sure the Democrats would love to see them spend lots of resources going for it. But they did, in fact, vote for Kerry, and they did, in fact, vote for Clinton both times, and they did vote for Obama by something like a 12, 13, 14-point margin. So it's going to be hard to see this as a bad night for Obama, even though it was a bad night for Tom Barrett.
John Heilemann, there's sure to be a lot of second-guessing. Should the president have gone to Wisconsin? Could he have tipped the balance if he did? When you look at this exit poll, I think you see why the conservative political call was to stay out of there. The president comes out of this exit poll with, as Rachel said, 53% among voters who voted to keep Scott Walker, an electorate that votes to keep Scott Walker. He wants all of those 53%, which include people who voted to keep Scott Walker in his job. I get the feeling he didn't want to go up to Wisconsin and tell those voters they were wrong about that, because that could alienate them for him in November.
I think that's unquestionably right, Lawrence. And the president's political team is conservative with a small c. And by that I mean they are very pragmatic. They're trying to husband their resources. And some of their resources are financial, but others of their resources include the president's prestige. And I think they looked at this race. They, I think, saw the writing on the wall here.
John, let me just interrupt. We're getting the word that the Republican lieutenant governor has survived her recall election, too.
Right.
She's going to hang on and stay in her office. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think the president's team saw the writing on the wall here, Lawrence, and I think they thought that Governor Walker was likely to hang on. And I think that they look at this state as Rachel and I and others have been saying about this, it's a pretty safe state for the president. If Wisconsin's really in peril in November, Barack Obama has much bigger problems across the electorate. He's in trouble in a lot of states where Wisconsin is problem. So I think they wanted to keep the president's nose out of it. It was not a bold decision, but as I say, they are playing to win, and winning in this case means trying to be careful to, as you said, not alienate parts of the electorate that may have had problems with the notion of a recall at all, and thought that that this was an improper, this election should never have happened. And so some of those people who voted for Walker the first time around, voted maybe for President Obama in 2008, and look at this as all kind of an illegitimate exercise. The president did not want to alienate anybody who would put this race into play, and I think he wanted to, as I say, as you said, make the safe call here. A lot of Democrats will be upset with him for that, but it was the prudent, I think, and cautious call.
Rachel Maddow, John Heilemann, and Dorian Warren, thank you all very much for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Just to